Welcome to Fading Causes. My name is Mukesh Kapila, and I have a most intriguing guest, Mohsen Sarhan Ali. He says that he is always guided by the question, what value am I truly leaving behind? He's well qualified for that, having graduated as an economist from Cairo University, followed by a master's in non-profit management at the American University of Cairo, and in public administration from the Harvard Kennedy School. Welcome, Mohsen.
Thank you, sir. It's a pleasure to be here.
You are the CEO of the Egyptian Food Bank, and we will talk of this amazing work later on. But to start, you're obviously a very driven individual. Where did that come from? Tell us a bit about your upbringing that made you who you are.
I think my upbringing, my mother, had a great weight in my choice of career and in the person I am today, even though she died when I was 15 or 16. I'm an only child, and I was raised by my mother, and when she passed away, I was raised by my grandmother, so I was mainly raised by women. I wouldn't say I was raised in poverty, but I was raised in a typical middle-class Egyptian family, and I always believed since I was a teenager that I have, even though I've been through a lot, I have been very lucky that I have been born in a family that was able to provide good education, that was able to provide a safe space for me to grow up sanely, if I may say, without any external pressures that I can't handle. While they were able to provide me that level of education, it has opened doors to me to progress in my career. And then as I progressed, I made some money, so I was able to invest back in my education. So what I'm trying to say maybe is I was actually very lucky to have escaped the poverty trap very early in my life. But not everyone is that lucky. And that's maybe why 7 or 8 years down my career in the nonprofits that I focused on what I really want to keep doing for the rest of my life, and that is fighting poverty. I found myself in an intersection of poverty and food security, but poverty is really what is in my heart.
Well, obviously, you've been brought up very well, and it has equipped you with a very strong social conscience. But what's got you particularly passionate on matters of hunger and food?
Actually, again, I'm looking at it from a poverty perspective, and evaluating my work more on how its effects on the people. It's all about poverty. After graduating from college, I worked for maybe 7 or 8 years in the private sector, and it was in the last 2 or 3 years there that I was pretty sure that I'm not continuing in that sector for long. I thought it was very evil while I was inside it. Of course, after I got out and I started working in the public domain at large, I understood how the private sector is indeed the sole driver of economic growth, and it's the sole fighter or the biggest fighter of poverty anywhere in the world, and how it gives people good jobs and enough money so that they can donate to us in the end. But while I was inside and I was working in export, traveled a lot. So one day I was in an airport in Kenya, another day I was in an airport in Delhi, and I remember one day I got stuck in a layover at 15 hours in Dubai, and then it really hit me. Why am I doing this? I had two kids at that time and a wife, and I had they were everything that I have got, and I kept wondering why am I leaving them? Is it just for money? What's after that? What's the ultimate objective of my traveling and of whatever I'm doing? And then as I thought deeper and deeper, it was obvious that the only objective of my job was to make some board somewhere a little richer. That's it. I know that's a very reductive way of looking at it. I was a bit young at that time. When I got outside the private sector, I understood that boards getting wealthier isn't a bad thing for the aggregate good of the world. But at that time, I felt I want to do something else with my time. I want my years on earth, no one knows how many, to do something better than just accumulating wealth for shareholders sitting somewhere and they don't care about what I'm doing.
I get your journey and the inspirations and experience behind it, but I still don't understand why you fixated on hunger and food security as part of your general concern about poverty.
Actually, I'm not. By chance, I found myself in one of the biggest nonprofits in food security in the region. But my first job in the nonprofit world was with education. I spent there like 5 years, and then I went to another nonprofit. I copied BRAC's targeting ultra poor model, and I started prototyping here in Egypt. And I spent again another 4 or 5 years, and then I was headhunted to lead the Egyptian Food Bank. Very happy. because the power to actually do mass effect on the entire Egyptian population. If you do something and you can scale it up well, it can really have an effect.
Explain a bit more about what you mean by poverty trap. It's kind of jargon. We understand what being poor and rich means, I think, but what's a poverty trap?
To me, the poverty trap is the same for individuals, for institutions, and also for nations. To put it very simply, if you start up with very little resources, then you will end up with very little disposable income. So you'll spend on your necessities, you'll spend on food, you'll spend on shelter, and then you'll have a very tight room for disposable income to spend on your education, to invest in your future, to invest in productive assets for you, to even invest in your health. Then you will end up entering again another cycle of poverty where you will have maybe less and less disposable income and you will have no room to invest. So you will never escape that trap. And I believe it's as simple as lethal. And you cannot really escape it by yourself. And no matter the level of motivation you have or the drive in you, if you're trapped in that, there is really no way out. Of course, there are statistical anomalies. Maybe 1 in 100,000 can escape it. But if you are born into prosperity, your chances are hundreds of times better than someone who is not born into that circumstances of actually making it for yourself and actually creating another wealthier family.
So are you saying that getting out of the poverty trap is really about taking charge of your own destiny, lifting yourself out of your disadvantage?
No, what I'm trying to say that is impossible for you to take control of your own destiny if you are trapped in it. To me, at least, an external force has to step in. Someone has to take your hand and pull you out of that. But from my part of the world, or from what I've been seeing, it's very hard for the poor to escape that trap by themselves. And it's very hard for nations to escape that trap by themselves. Again, there are anomalies and there are exceptions. But external forces have to step in, and also for institutions. So the nonprofit I was working in, its scale, after maybe 5 years I spent there, I was able to go from 1 million in funding to 40 million. But if I spend another 5 years, I wouldn't be able to grow from 40 million to 400 million. It's nearly impossible because, again, there is a limit to how far you can grow from the place where you have started. But the Egyptian Food Bank was already a huge machine. It just needed some oiling up. It just needed a little bit better gas, and then it would fly. And it did.
So before we get into the Egyptian Food Bank, which I'm extremely curious to learn about, can you provide a kind of bigger context? Give us some facts and figures about the state of the world's food security.
Certainly. As you know, Professor, SDG 2, or the goal of ending hunger, is one of the most famous goals for being most certainly to fail by the expiration of the SDG round in 2030. So there are maybe around 9% of the world population in severe undernourishment. Let's say it very, very simply, they cannot get enough calories to sustain the most basic functions of life. So we're talking about more or less 800 million people. And if you look at the total amount of food that is available in the world, calculated in calories, the world produces from 20 to 22 trillion calories each and every day. And if you take that and divide it by the world population, you'll find that each person, when divided equally, they will have around 2,700 calories. And that's well above the threshold required for people to exist. Actually, 2,700 calories will allow you to thrive and to live and to be able to passionately pursue whatever you want to pursue in life. If you take the issue of food waste, maybe 13 or 14% are wasted every day. Again, you will end up with 1,000 calories available per person. And if you look at it from a global distribution perspective, and I've done some calculations and I've singled out the countries that have the highest percentage of their population affected by undernourishment. When I looked inside those countries alone, again, there are enough calories within those individual countries to go for everyone. So the country in the world with the highest percentage of people under undernourishment line, they still have around 1,800 calories to go around. So where's that flaw? Again, it's poverty. It's to me, it's nothing else. Because the levels of income inequality that we're experiencing today, yes, they're a little better, but they're still mind-boggling.
So these are fascinating statistics, and really clarified that actually the world is producing more than enough food for everyone. And yet, of
Yes.
course, it's not distributed in an equitable manner, and people are going hungry. 800 million, you said. Meanwhile, probably another billion are so fat that they're having to take expensive injections to put their weight down. But tell me, from your studies of poverty and traveling around the world, why do we have such gross inequalities with food availability, affordability, and access? And why is the world tolerating that?
Why do we have such inequality? Again, it is from the evil root of income inequality. We're having calorie inequality. And why? It's a very interesting question. And I'm a professor, I don't know how to say it, but we were always destined to be like that, the global south. And global north has always been destined to be like that. I think it's a matter of geography.
Are you saying
If you go,
inequality is part of the world that we are bound to live in, is destiny? I mean,
yes,
there's always
it
been
is.
South, rich and poor, and we should get used to inequality. But you're saying we should lift ourselves out of poverty. You said we need a helping hand. I'm trying to figure out whether it is possible to make the world a better place through countering unfairnesses and inequalities, or whether or not philanthropies and NGOs like yours are just panaceas to mitigate the worst harshnesses and make the world a little more humane.
All right. When I joined the Egyptian Food Bank, their mission was ending hunger. That was aligned with what was stated in the MDGs and then the SDGs. But one of the first things that I'm proud that I have done when I joined, that I convinced the board that this is a myth and that is something that would never happen. Because those flags are unrealistic, setting targets is a very delicate science. If you set a target that is unattainable, people will most certainly lose hope in the end of the road, and they will probably will probably figure out that there's other stuff that they better do with their time. If you set a target that is somehow achievable but a little bit stretched out, I think that's the sweet spot. Of course, if you set a target so low, you will be losing on people's potential, and you will actually be ending up with something much lower than where you should be. I believe ending hunger is a myth. Ending poverty is another myth. And I believe the world by design on the aggregate scale will stay as it is. Yes, there has been exceptions. Yes, China has skyrocketed out of that equation. India is following next. Maybe Bangladesh will find it also flying out of that trap in a decade or so. But again, as we fly, the global north would have flying much higher, and the technology gap, especially with the proliferation of AI we're seeing now, I think it would get much wider. We would never be able to catch up on that technological divide we're living now, and we're destined on the aggregate level to stay not where we are, but the difference will stay the same between what we can reach and what the global north could reach. I'm not trying to be pessimistic, but I'm trying to say that for a non-profit operator as myself, my utmost dream of success is being able to save whoever are within my jurisdiction. I mean, I have enough resources to serve X number of people, so I want to save them. I'm using maybe a little bit strong words. I'm not saving anyone. I'll try to serve them as effectively, as efficiently as I can. I have around 1,200 employees. I want to be good to them, and I want them to be able to have good lives and to be able to enjoy the work experience. But that's it. I cannot look at anything macro, because again, I will lose hope very quickly, and probably I'll not continue much.
I appreciate your realism and also your honesty. And this is a good moment to get into the Egyptian Food Bank in detail. Tell us about what it is and your underlying philosophy and the operating model.
So we have 3 platforms. One of them is protection. And in that, we try to serve families who are unable to work, or they are able to work, but their income is not enough to provide the minimum calories they need to live. And we're very specific in the target groups. In protection, we're serving female-headed households. They are around 46% of our beneficiary pool, and we're disabled, and we're serving mainly elderly individuals who are living alone. and some foreign students who are coming to Egypt to study, mainly from Africa and Southeast Asia, and mainly study in Al-Azhar. In that program, we provide direct food aid. We used to provide food boxes, but now we have established a network of around 260 mini supermarkets that are scattered all across Egypt. And we send people SMS codes, and they carry points, and they can go to that network of supermarkets and they can shop. Of course, this gives us a wealth of data, and we're able to target individual families with nutrition messages that are tailored to their consumption and interests.
Interrupt you there for a minute to explain why you are going down this retail food provision. In the food humanitarian business, we are told that cash is much better. And whether it's refugees or elsewhere, WFP is promoting cash in a big way. I'm intrigued by your retail delivery model with your network of shops. Why is that a better way as opposed to just dishing out the cash to your beneficiaries?
Okay, there is a wealth of research that cash is actually very cost effective. It gives people agency, and that's mainly the main flag the cash proponents are raising. It's easier to transport, it has lower overheads. But my counter argument, that's also very scientific and based on a recent randomized control trial we've done with the International Food Policy Research Institute, that in high inflationary environments like Egypt, cash is not always the king, as they say in the private sector. I would say in the last 3 or 4 years, we had not less than 400% inflation in basic food items. And that was led by 2 consecutive currency devaluations. And unfortunately, and again, that's by design because we're in Africa. Most of our food is imported. We have been, we have been framed in the competitive and comparative advantage schools of economics. So we grew strawberries to export instead of growing wheat and maize to eat, because it's more cost effective per hectare. And again, the science said that, the Western science. So we grew strawberries and now we import most of our food. So when the devaluations hit, it hit hard. And people, now the government, of course, is thinking of switching. They have a food subsidy model, more or less similar to SNAP in the US. They are now thinking of switching it to cash. Mm-hmm. Again, because it's easier, there is less fraud, there is less overheads, they can distribute it easily. But I really wonder what people would be able to do with that money. Again, if I give them £100 now, it would be fascinating to find out what we'll be able to do with those same £100 3 or 4 months from now. I would tell you something I've tried before opening that chain. We've opened of mini supermarkets. We've tried giving people codes to go to other supermarkets that are existing already instead of investing in our own. And all sorts of bad things happened. First of all, we found a lot of discrimination that happened to the people there when the cashiers found out that these are people coming from nonprofits and they're actually not paying in cash right now, and probably they're not leaving tips. They were subject to very different treatment than the other cash-paying customers. And of course, with the rapid fluctuation in prices, mainly sugar, rice, cooking oils, the staples that we consume daily, people, the value of the points that they had, it would buy them something today, but it would buy them something else entirely tomorrow. And you'll find even discrepancies across geographies. So you'll find people in Upper Egypt, they are facing a price list that is very different than people in Delta. That's very, very different than people in Cairo, where the retailers have a lot of demand and they know the things that they have, it will sell. So they just keep raising the prices. And of course, the myth of governments controlling the prices, I think we've learned the hard way that it is a myth. Because actually, the power of Adam Smith, invisible hand that is invisible, you cannot coerce it. The economy that doesn't have a hand that you can coerce into doing something. It will act on its own, and you will not be able to control prices, no matter how diligent or how smart you are. Prices will control themselves in the end.
I'm very much understanding better. Thank you. About how the system in which you are operating in Egypt, and I guess many such contexts elsewhere, the food system is broken. It's been screwed up. It's been screwed up because of external geopolitical forces, exporting and importing. The macroeconomy really makes it very much harder for poor people to maintain a stable, affordable market. But where's the ultimate solution to this? How do we actually reform the market overall?
I believe in one of the solutions I'm doing. So I was telling you about protection. We have our third platform is called empowerment. I started 3 years ago, and it took us 2 years to actually get up and running. What I'm doing in that platform, we're buying food items in excess of $50 million a year. I'm trying to push as much of that procurement directly to the poor. If I would say it another way, to integrate them within my supply chain. And I do that all across the food items I'm buying. So we're buying around 300,000 chickens a year. Now, most of those chickens are coming from women who are staying at their homes. We give them chicks, we give them chicken feed, and then we buy back the chicken from them, actually at above market prices. We're still benefiting as the Egyptian Food Bank because there is a lot of middlemen we're cutting. And the women at home, they are making money. They are making money based on a very predictable buyer. And they are able to provide better lives for their families. We're doing that also in meat now. So we have collectively taken a group of women and collectively given them ownership of a cattle farm. We're doing that in dairy as well. We're doing that in white beans, in lentils, in dates. And we're starting to do it even in cooking oil by planting, by empowering farmers who are planting sunflower, and we're taking that and turning it into oil. So I think if other big players in food procurement, especially the government, start moving diligently in that direction, it could lift masses, millions and millions out of poverty. Because, we've been doing micro projects to save the most disadvantaged segments of society from poverty. We've been doing them for decades, and they never work. We think they work, but they never work. Even the micro loans, yes, they are very successful because the poor pay back, but they're not better off. They pay back, and the repayments rates are always fantastic, much better than banks. They are over 90%, but the people are not richer, and they haven't escaped the cycle of poverty. But because we go and we spend money on training, and we spend money on courses, and we spend money on equipment, but again, those people, their problems are much more compounded than just access to finance, access to mentorship, and it's most importantly access to markets and access to scale. They don't know where the market is, and if they know where the market is, they don't have the scale to actually compete with the big guys. But if big guys like us are able to provide them with a stable market, it changes the laws of the game entirely.
I am impressed. I can understand now better how you are not just helping poor people, but trying to do something about the structural causes of their poverty through giving them capacities, empowerment, and means to be able to rise above the poverty that you talked about. But tell me, micro level, starting from the bottom up approaches, are they the only way to bring about change in underdeveloped societies? Wouldn't this be more effective if done top down by act of policy?
I think the world we're living now in, Professor, it's less globalized and more nationalist and more enclosed on itself. And even within those small worlds, I believe public policy is very much politicized. And I don't think in most parts of the world now, people who have the power have the heart to actually do something to the people who do not have power. I think the people who have power want to help other segments that also have power so they can have more power. But the people without power are left out of the global equation completely. Of course, we have seen what happened with USAID, but it will keep getting worse and worse, and governments will close on themselves much more. I think it's up to institutions like us that are independent and financed from the public and privately to actually collaborate and do something on a little bigger scale. Also, I think people have to start listening to scientists more. I don't know how to do that, and I don't know how we would ever get, how the scientific community would ever have decent amount of leverage that is actually have a voice within the policy-making domains. But I think it's all now on the individuals. It's all individual institutions. Big things happening globally all across the world at the same time. I think it's getting more and more hazy.
It's heartwarming to see that despite all the doom and gloom out there and all the forces that are aligning against progress and in fact going backward in many cases, you have decided to actually take agency into your own hands, and in the sphere you find yourself in, try to make a positive difference. You told me before that your research interest lies at the intersection of psychology, public policy, and implementation. We've talked a lot about implementation, and we have referenced public policy. But where does the psychology fit in?
I first got interested in that in my previous work, anti-poverty program targeting ultra poor, and I wanted to see if our work would have any effect on the mental health of the people we're serving. So I got, if I remember that tool, it was called Beck's Depression Inventory. And this tool, it asks stuff like, when was the last time you did something meaningful in your life? When was the last time you had good time with your friends? When was the last time you felt content with what you had? And I sent 5 or 6 of my staff to the field to start applying those questionnaires to the people that we serve. And I ended up in a catastrophe because my staff, after reading the first question, started crying, and the women that they served started crying, and then the managers started crying, and I had like a massive nervous breakdown across the whole institution, because even for people who were salaried employees and they had some form of a stable job, whenever they read the first sentence, they just started crying because they never had a day in their life where they felt they were like content or doing something meaningful or stuff like that. So again, I started seeing that poverty and mental health are very tightly connected. When people are poor, and poor to a level that they cannot guarantee that they will be able to eat today or tomorrow, and they are not able to guarantee that if one of their children had a disease, they will be able to buy them that medicine, that traps them much, much deeper in the poverty trap. And it fixes, and again, that's very scientifically, it fixes their mind in the now, and they seek what is called instant gratification. So they start only fixating on how they will eat today, and they will have absolutely no room in their minds to think of anything beyond the day that they are trapped in. So a woman will never think about better health for herself or for her children or better education. She will never even have any aspirations to do any of those things. She will only be trapped in the food today. You know, I've been reading research recently that the effect of percent reduction in IQ for poverty, it's exactly equivalent to a well-off person missing completely a night of sleep. So people would be living in that perpetually. Each and every day, they are trapped in the now. And that also what prompted me. I started a couple of years ago a nonprofit in Egypt. It's called Ulfa. I haven't yet launched it on a scale to actually have an effect, but this nonprofit is focused on nothing but the mental health of poor women in rural areas. And again, I think that this issue is very important here because mental health here is very stigmatized. So if you find a woman in a poor area, she most certainly has chronic depression. If she goes to her husband and tells him, I want to go visit a psychiatrist, most probably he will drag her to her parents and say, your daughter is no use to me. She's insane. We find that across all demographics and across all geographies here, but it's very prevalent in poorer areas. And whatever we do to poor people to try and lift them out of poverty, if they are trapped in chronic depression, it makes the job of the social worker 10 times harder.
If I may get personal about your own psychology, you appear very obsessed. And obsession has two sides to it, a bad and a good. So I'm not making any judgments here. But there is, for example, Elon Musk. He's obsessed about going to Mars. I wonder whether your obsession with your mission is blinding you to some ultimate destination that is not yet clear to you and which you are still need to discover to become more effective. So let me just ask, what's your ultimate destination?
It's a very difficult question, but alhamdulillah, God has given me a lot, but I think I am trapped in instant gratification. I am trapped in my day each and every day. I think my main driver is I don't want to feel that I have lost any time. So when I meet my creator in the afterlife, I would be able to confidently say I've done whatever I could. But I'm not trying to see something in particular. I'm just trying to squeeze as much as I can from each and every day. And that makes it very difficult on myself and for the people also around me. I've just been telling my staff in the Egyptian Food Bank, we've been living under stress for 6 years. And this is not normal. Yeah, this is not normal to have a job that you are always under stress, but that stress, I am creating it on myself and unfortunately for the people around me, because I want to get the most I can get out of each and every single day, because that day is not coming back.
You've almost answered my next question, which was where we started when you said that you ask yourself this question: what value am I truly leaving behind, and how you measure it? I think I understand how you measure it, but tell me, how often do you do your value computations? Do you do it every day, perhaps before bed and as you're brushing your teeth? Are you saying, oh, what good did I do today? How much value did I add? Or how do you do your self audit? And what happens on the days which are bad? We all have those bad days when things don't go as we plan, when we don't achieve what we want. What do? Are you sleepless?
So I have this very clear test that I put myself to. I wouldn't say every day, but quite often. It's called the replaceability test. So the Egyptian Food Bank is maybe the 10th or the 11th place that I worked in, because this test I've been applying it for most of my life, and whenever I fail it, I'm out. That test is very simple. I imagine myself that if my job was advertised in a newspaper, how many people would line up for it? And if I was interviewing them, how likely I am to find someone that would replace me and do a better job than I do. If I find that I am in a replaceable position, I just leave and go to a place that I'm not easily replaced, because that's where I think I will have value. It's a relative value. Maybe it's like the marginal utility in economics. A cup of water is not the same value to everyone. It's a big value to someone in the desert, but for someone in restaurants, it's nothing. And I think that what made me while I joined the public domain, my second job was in the American University in Cairo. I was the director of development, and I had a black Mercedes driving me back and home from work, and it was a really laid-back job, and it was very easy. But again, I was very replaceable, because if my job got advertised, hundreds of people would line up to take my place, and I figured they would at least do as good as I am. Some of them would even do better. So it didn't take me 6 months to leave that job. And I went to work in a nonprofit in one of the most dangerous places in Cairo. It's called Ezbet Khairallah. It's an informal settlement. There are around 1 million households living there. Most of them don't have electricity. Most of them at that time didn't have water. So this actually cost me a marriage, because when I left that job at the American University in Cairo, and I had the chance to put my kids there for free because I was a staff there. So I left a lot, and I went to work with much less salary in one of the most dangerous areas in Cairo, because I felt I didn't have a value here, but I will have a value there. Again, it's very personal. I think it's a little bit selfish. I'm thinking internally, but again, I think it's for the greater good.
Perhaps a bit of selfishness is an important driver in our behaviors, both good and bad. Mohsen, as we come to the end of our fascinating conversation, I want to thank you really for indicating that actually the way you run the Egyptian Food Bank is not about feeding just the body. It's about feeding the soul and the mind as well. And that perhaps may be the ultimate added value of your enterprise. I hope also the conversation has given some food for reflection for our listeners. The question that you ask yourself, am I adding value, is something that all of us can ask. So thank you again very much, Mohsen, for being my guest today.
Thank you, Professor, for giving me the opportunity.